Housing and location planning for Aliyah represents the delightful challenge of choosing where to spend your life savings on accommodation smaller than your current British storage closet, while simultaneously deciding which Israeli community will provide optimal opportunities for cultural integration, professional development, and psychological survival during the inevitable period when you question every life decision that led to voluntarily relocating to a country where housing prices suggest apartments are constructed from compressed diamonds and unicorn tears. This magnificent adventure involves researching Israeli regional characteristics using online resources that describe every location as charming, up and coming, or perfect for families, which apparently translates to expensive, under construction since the 1990s, and has a playground somewhere within walking distance if you enjoy hiking through construction zones and questionable neighborhood planning decisions that prioritize developer profits over resident convenience. Understanding Israel's regional diversity. Choose your adventure. Israel's compact geography contains more lifestyle variation per square kilometer than entire European countries, where driving 30 minutes in any direction transports you to completely different cultural universes with distinct housing costs, community expectations, and social survival requirements that would challenge professional anthropologists with advanced degrees in Middle Eastern cultural studies and supernatural adaptation abilities. Tel Aviv represents Israel's economic and cultural center, where housing costs operate on pricing principles that suggest real estate developers believe apartments should be financial investments equivalent to purchasing small countries, while lifestyle opportunities include cosmopolitan dining, cultural events, and professional networking that require social budgets exceeding most people's mortgage payments and energy levels that would challenge professional entertainers with supernatural stamina. The Tel Aviv metropolitan area offers employment opportunities in technology, finance, and international business that attract professionals from around the world, creating international communities where English is commonly spoken and British cultural references are understood. But where housing costs require dual professional incomes, minimal living space expectations, and financial planning strategies typically reserved for luxury lifestyle maintenance in major world capitals. Tel Aviv traffic congestion operates according to physics principles that suggest normal transportation laws don't apply to Middle Eastern urban planning, where commute times can exceed the actual distance traveled by factors that would challenge mathematical probability calculations, while parking availability operates according to scarcity economics that make finding spaces feel like winning small lottery prizes, requiring celebration and immediate notification of family members. Jerusalem combines government employment opportunities with religious and historical significance that creates unique living experiences where ancient history meets modern bureaucracy in ways that affect everything from neighborhood character to municipal services, while housing costs remain slightly more reasonable than Tel Aviv until you factor in heating bills during winter months that apparently assume everyone enjoys indoor temperatures suitable for Arctic exploration training. Jerusalem's diverse neighborhoods range from ultra-Orthodox communities where secular residents feel like anthropological curiosities, to secular areas where religious residents navigate cultural differences, to mixed communities where everyone practices tolerance levels that would qualify them for diplomatic service in international conflict resolution organizations requiring supernatural patience and cultural sensitivity training. Haifa represents Israel's industrial center with port activities and growing technology sectors, combined with housing costs that seem reasonable until you realize reasonable in Israeli terms means roughly equivalent to premium London neighborhood pricing, while the city's multicultural atmosphere includes significant Arab-Israeli communities that create cultural diversity requiring social navigation skills exceeding most international relations training programs. Central Israel's suburban communities offer family-friendly environments with good schools and reasonable commuting access to major employment centers, where reasonable commuting means traffic jams that provide adequate time for learning Hebrew through audiobooks, practicing meditation techniques, or developing philosophical acceptance of transportation systems that operate according to mysterious scheduling principles defying logical explanation or prediction capabilities. Housing market reality, economic shock therapy. Israeli housing market dynamics operate on economic principles that make British property prices seem like charitable donations, where property ownership requires financial resources typically associated with purchasing commercial real estate or small businesses, while rental markets operate according to pricing strategies that suggest temporary accommodation should cost more than most people's total living expenses in normal countries with functioning housing markets. Property purchase procedures involve down payment requirements that often exceed most people's total savings accounts, legal fees that rival university tuition costs, and registration taxes that add percentages to purchase prices that would fund small government programs in normal countries, with reasonable property transaction cost structures and consumer protection frameworks designed to prevent real estate industry exploitation of basic human shelter needs. New immigrant property purchase benefits sound generous until you discover application procedures requiring documentation more comprehensive than applying for government security clearances, while benefit eligibility involves timing requirements that create coordination challenges between immigration approval, employment establishment, and property market availability that require supernatural planning abilities and possibly consultation with professional fortune tellers for successful timing coordination. Rental market dynamics require multiple months of rent in advance. Personal guarantees that suggest landlords believe tenants represent significant security risks, requiring extensive financial protection, and apartment viewing procedures that resemble competitive sporting events where multiple prospective tenants compete for housing opportunities that would be considered substandard accommodation in most developed countries with functioning housing quality standards. Israeli rental agreements operate according to legal frameworks that favor landlords with protections exceeding most commercial lease arrangements, while tenant rights provide minimal protection against rent increases, maintenance issues, or landlord behavior that would violate tenant protection laws in countries with comprehensive renter rights legislation and enforcement mechanisms designed to prevent housing market exploitation, temporary housing adventures, accommodation survival games. Short-term accommodation options include furnished rental apartments that charge premium prices for furniture that appears sourced from charity shops, extended stay facilities that provide hotel services at luxury resort pricing, and temporary housing services that specialize in immigrant accommodation through pricing strategies that suggest temporary living should cost significantly more than permanent housing arrangements in normal economic systems. Furnished apartment rental markets operate on pricing principles that suggest furniture rental should cost more than purchasing new furnishings, while furnishing quality typically includes items that have survived multiple previous tenants and decoration styles that suggest interior design by people who believe aesthetic harmony represents Western cultural imperialism, requiring resistance through creative color combination experiments. Absorption centers provide government-supported housing for new immigrants that includes integration services, language training, and community support through institutional living arrangements that resemble university dormitories designed for families, where shared facilities, community rules, and structured programming create environments that test family privacy needs and individual autonomy expectations during already stressful immigration adjustment periods. Temporary rental agreement terms require understanding Hebrew legal language for housing contracts that combine biblical Hebrew, modern legal terminology, and creative interpretation approaches that would challenge professional legal translators with specialized training in ancient and modern legal language integration, while notice requirements involve timing coordination more complex than international business contract management, location selection comedy, geographic decision paralysis. Employment proximity calculations require understanding Israeli traffic patterns that operate according to chaos theory principles rather than predictable transportation planning, where commute time estimates vary by factors including weather conditions, religious holidays, political demonstrations, construction projects, and apparently cosmic alignment patterns that affect traffic flow in ways that defy logical transportation system analysis. School district research involves evaluating educational options that include secular state schools, religious state schools, private schools, international schools, and specialized programs that require understanding Israeli educational system complexity exceeding most university comparative education programs, while school quality assessments depend on criteria including academic performance, cultural atmosphere, Hebrew language support, and community integration approaches. Community cultural character evaluation requires anthropological research skills for understanding neighborhood social dynamics, religious observance levels, secular religious balance, immigrant community presence, veteran Israeli integration patterns, and social interaction expectations that affect everything from Sabbath neighborhood activity levels to community event participation obligations and social acceptance criteria. Infrastructure assessment involves evaluating public transportation that operates according to scheduling systems apparently designed by people who consider timetables mere suggestions, healthcare facility access that may require navigation skills for reaching medical appointments during traffic conditions resembling natural disaster evacuation scenarios, and shopping options that range from international supermarket chains to local markets requiring negotiation skills for basic grocery procurement. Community integration, social survival skills. Existing immigrant community evaluation requires research into English-speaking population levels, cultural support services, integration assistance programs, and social networking opportunities that vary dramatically between communities where established immigrant populations provide cultural familiarity and transition assistance, versus communities requiring independent cultural adaptation through total Hebrew immersion and Israeli social integration without cultural safety nets. Religious community options assessment involves understanding synagogue varieties, religious education opportunities, cultural celebration patterns, and community observance expectations that affect family cultural continuity and social integration, where religious community participation may be expected, regardless of personal observance levels, and community membership involves social obligations extending beyond religious service attendance to broader community support and participation requirements. Professional networking opportunity evaluation requires understanding regional employment communities, industry concentration patterns, professional association presence, and career advancement possibilities that vary significantly between locations offering robust professional development resources versus areas providing limited professional community support for career growth and business relationship development. Social activity and recreational opportunity research involves evaluating community amenities, including sports facilities, cultural programs, children's activities, and adult education options that affect family satisfaction and social integration success, where community activity availability often correlates with community size, cultural emphasis, and municipal budget allocation priorities that may not align with individual family recreational interests and social needs. Property search reality, house hunting, combat sports. Housing search timing coordination requires supernatural planning abilities for aligning immigration approval schedules, employment start dates, family transition needs, school enrollment deadlines, and property market availability into synchronized timelines that accommodate Israeli bureaucratic processing delays, real estate market fluctuations, and family adjustment needs that rarely coordinate conveniently for optimal housing decision-making conditions. Real estate professional selection involves finding agents who specialize in immigrant services without charging premium fees for cultural translation services, market knowledge without creative interpretation of property condition assessments, and legal guidance without requiring additional legal consultation for understanding agent advice and contract recommendation, accuracy, and completeness. Property viewing procedures resemble competitive sporting events where multiple prospective buyers or renters compete for housing opportunities through bidding processes, immediate decision requirements, and landlord or seller preference criteria that may include everything from employment verification to character assessment based on brief apartment viewing interactions and possibly cosmic compatibility evaluation methods. Documentation requirements for housing transactions involve legal paperwork more comprehensive than international business contracts, verification procedures that require proving financial stability through documentation exceeding most bank loan applications, and reference requirements that suggest housing providers believe renters or buyers represent significant security risks, requiring extensive background investigation and character verification processes. The ultimate housing reality check. Housing search coordination requires balancing employment proximity against housing affordability, school quality against community cultural fit, temporary accommodation costs against permanent housing availability timing, and family preference accommodation against Israeli housing market reality constraints that rarely align conveniently for optimal decision-making that satisfies all family priorities and financial limitations simultaneously. Location decision complexity involves evaluating multiple factors including cost of living, employment opportunities, educational quality, community character, cultural atmosphere, infrastructure adequacy, social integration possibilities, and long-term satisfaction potential through decision-making processes that exceed most business strategic planning complexity while operating under time pressure and information limitations that would challenge professional consulting organizations. The ultimate housing and location planning reality reveals that successful Israeli housing decisions require abandoning British housing market expectations in favor of Israeli market reality acceptance, developing flexibility for accommodation standards that prioritize location and community over space and amenities, and maintaining perspective that housing challenges represent temporary adjustment difficulties rather than permanent lifestyle compromise requiring long-term satisfaction reduction. This magnificent housing adventure ensures that by completion, you'll have developed real estate market expertise that qualifies you for consulting with other bewildered immigrants attempting similar housing market navigation challenges, property investment analysis skills that exceed most real estate professional training programs, and psychological resilience for maintaining sanity during housing search processes that test human adaptability limits and decision-making capabilities under pressure conditions that would challenge professional crisis management specialists. The housing and location planning process transforms ordinary families into expert housing market analysts who can evaluate property investment potential while calculating commute times during peak traffic conditions, assess community cultural dynamics while researching school district quality ratings, and maintain family harmony during housing decision-making processes that involve more variables than most scientific research projects while operating under timeline pressure and financial constraints that require diplomatic negotiation skills for successful family consensus achievement and long-term satisfaction optimization.